I'm going to open the September 29th, 2020 meeting of the East Long Meadow Planning Board. And when I do that, I need to ask, according to Mass General Law, if there's anyone who might be recording this meeting. And if there is, would you please raise your hand so that we can see? Seeing none, we can move to our order of business. And the first order is the call of the roll. So those members in attendance are Peter Punderson, George Kingston, Tide Richards, John Torsha, myself, Russell Denver, the Director of Planning and Community Development, Bethany Yao. So we forwarded minutes to be reviewed so that we can approve them. So the first meeting minutes would be the meeting of September 8th, 2020. Everyone have an opportunity to review those? Do I hear a motion to accept?
So moved, George.
Second.
So we have a motion made and second to approve the meeting minutes of September 8th, 2020. And just so the viewing audience might know, or should know, because we are on video, every item needs a roll call vote. So on the approval of September 8th, 2020 meeting minutes, Mr. Punderson?
Aye.
Mr. Kingston?
Aye.
Mr. Richards?
Yes.
Mr. Torsha?
Aye.
And I am a yes as well. So the meeting minutes of September 14th, 2020. Do I hear a motion to accept?
So moved, George.
Do I have a second?
Second, Pete.
So a motion made and seconded to approve the meeting minutes of September 14th, 2020. So by roll call, Mr. Punderson?
Aye.
Mr. Kingston?
Aye.
Mr. Richards?
Yes.
Mr. Torsha?
Aye.
Mr. Clerk, can you read the first item, please?
SPRW 2020-33, Quality Granite and Quartz LLC, request for site plan review waiver for a business offering retail and installation of granite and quartz at 173A Shaker Road, Assessor's Parcel ID 18-11-0, an existing structure of 0.37 plus or minus acres, site industrial zoning district. The applicant is Brock Lefebvre, 4 Millbrook Drive, East Long Meadow, Mass.
Is Mr. Lefebvre available to come into the meeting? I see he is an attendee.
Hello?
Hello, we can hear you. We can't see you.
Not sure why.
So at the bottom of the screen, there is a button that says video. There you go. Hello.
Hi, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing
Welcome.
well.
So tell us a little bit about your business. Can you just point out also the specific location that you're in? Are you replacing an existing business? Give us a little bit about the hours of operation, number of employees, that type of thing.
I also have my business manager with me, which is Shannon Lefebvre.
Hello.
Hi. So you're talking about what used to occupy that building when you say previous business?
Yeah.
There was a smoke shop there before.
Was the vape shop, and right now the business, so the building is open.
Yep.
I mean, it's vacant now, and so we are leasing the building.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Okay. What are your anticipated hours of operation?
Right now, we anticipate either 12 to 6 or 11 to 6. We're not sure about the extra hour in the morning, but it's generally a afternoon and very early evening business.
Yeah, and how many anticipated employees might you have?
Right now, we have my son, Brock, and his other partner are going to be doing the majority of the fabricating and installing. And then we have two part-time administrative employees and one likely employee who will be working on the fabrication or installation, and he likely will not be working at the shop. So I would say total of 5 employees of the business, with 2 being part-time.
Great. Do any members of the planning board have any questions for the petitioner?
Yes, I do, Mr.
Okay.
Chair. I'd like to know if they're going to be storing any materials outside, specifically slabs of granite or quartz or anything like that, being stored outside the building.
Do you mean on display during the day, or do you mean stored outside 24/7?
Stored outside 24/7. I'm thinking of the place up on Boston Road that also does this kind of thing.
That is not our plan to store anything outside.
Okay, that's great. I was just concerned because you're near the rail trail, and if kids get in there at night, if stuff falls over, it's obviously not good.
Right,
Right.
right. I can see us possibly moving some out during the day if we have a client that wants to look at a total slab and get a
Right.
general, 180 or 360-degree view of it.
Sure.
But in terms of just
Leaving
storing
it out
outside,
there?
absolutely not.
No.
No.
One, theoretically, someone could steal it. I mean, it'd be a hard thing to steal because it's so big and heavy, but it could happen.
Any other questions by the board? Hearing none. Do I hear a motion to approve the site plan review or site plan waiver?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it, George.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. By roll call, Mr. Punderson,
Aye.
Mr. Kingston,
Aye.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Mr. Torsia,
Aye.
and I am a yes as well. Best of luck to you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Good luck.
Next item, Mr. Clerk.
SPRW 2020-34, Stay Golden, request for site plan review waiver for Spray Tan Studio at 37 Harkness Avenue, assessors parcel ID 12-33-0, an existing structure of 2.07 plus or minus acre site in the business zoning district. The applicant is Erica Devlin, 508 Gardner's Way, Enfield, Connecticut.
So is the petitioner available? I see her as an attendee. So Erica, we can't see you yet. There you are. Hello?
Hear me?
Yep, we can hear you now. Yep,
Perfect, perfect.
okay. So just a couple of just preliminary questions. Can you tell us, is your location replacing a business that might have gone out of business? What you anticipate for a number of employees, what you anticipate for hours of operation, just a little bit about the shop. So. Well, we can't hear you.
Her mic is off.
Oh, it's on.
No, I'm looking at the wrong mic.
No, can't hear you.
How about now?
Oh, now we can.
All right, okay. Sorry, I've only done like 3 of these since quarantine.
Okay.
I'm over at the Heritage Village.
Yeah, now we can't hear you again. So Erica, we can't hear you. Bethany, do you think you can reach out? Up?
Huh?
Okay, I can hear you now.
Okay, so I'll try and make it quick.
Okay.
So I am a proprietor. It's just me doing the spray tanning right now. I anticipate hiring 1 or 2 employees in the new year. First, I am replacing a business. I think they went out of business. I'm not entirely sure. But as far as I know, the place has been vacant.
So Bethany, do you think you can add some flavor?
Sure. Let me see. She also could type in the chat her responses to any questions. Erica, do you see that option on your screen?
Yeah.
So just tell us what you anticipate your hours of operation to be. So Bethany, while she's doing that, so certainly there are no issues with that property, having that business there, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And there have been no issues with Board of Health or any other departments related to this request?
Correct.
Do
So
any
I just have to interrupt. She sent it to me privately. She said Wednesday through Saturday, 11 to 7, 9:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Saturdays.
Great.
If you change your chat to all panelists, it'll get to everyone. Sorry about that.
Okay. Anybody have any specific questions for the petitioner?
No.
Okay, hearing none. Do I hear a motion to approve the site plan waiver?
So moved, George.
Do I have a second?
Second, Peter.
So a motion made and seconded to approve the site plan waiver for this property. So by roll call, Mr. Punderson,
Aye.
Mr. Kingston,
Aye.
Mr. Richards,
Aye.
Mr. Torsia,
Aye.
and I am a yes as well. Best of luck to you. Welcome to town.
Yeah.
Thank you. Take care. Next item, Mr. Clerk.
SPRW 2020-35, self-storage facility expansion. Request for site plan review waiver for proposed amendment to the site plan for existing self-storage facility at 0 Grove Avenue, Assessor's Parcel ID 15-32-E, on a 9.58 plus or minus acre site in the industrial zoning district. The applicant is Baldwin Street LLC, 46 Center Square, East Long Meadow, Mass. 01028.
Is there a representative for Baldwin Street LLC who can come into the meeting? Please raise your hand. Hello.
Good evening. For the record, Sophia from R. Lebeck Associates here on behalf of Baldwin Street LLC regarding the request for site plan waiver. If I could give a little bit of background on what the specific request is through the chair.
Please do. Yeah,
Great.
please do.
I'm not sure if I can share. I'm going to attempt to share my screen. I don't know, Bethany, if that's possible.
Amy, does that work on your end?
Yep, it's all set. Thank you. Okay, so we recently did file an application for zoning determination to determine the best route to adjust or accommodate this request. The building inspector did suggest that we apply for this specific waiver. If I can pull up a quick sketch just identifying what the request is. Previously, this application or request was approved for site plan approval with a proposed 450 square foot building. It was approximately 15 by 30. The client wishes to now expand the office space to 18 by 45, netting 810 square feet. That's the only difference. There's a little bit of a smaller setback on this end here. Parking, traffic, all other site improvements remain the same.
Okay. Do members of the planning board have any questions?
Does this affect the parking? Do you still have sufficient parking with the additional square footage?
Yes, we have confirmed that, and we do have sufficient parking for the use.
Thank you.
Any other questions by the board? So I'm going to be a little unusual here. So my recollection is this drew a fairly large number of residents when we initially went through this issue a couple of years ago. So I don't know if there are any residents who are on the Zoom call that would like to be heard on this issue. If you do, please raise your hand so you can be brought into the meeting. I guess there are none. So if there are no further questions from the planning board, do I have a motion to?
I have one question, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
This was approved originally in 2018. Could the applicant please update us on the status of the project?
Yes, I believe they are ready to start construction soon. However, it did come up that they needed more office space, which trumped the question or the request to this board.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, I'd like a clarity on what is soon.
That I don't have readily available. I don't have the specific date from the client. I can try to obtain it. But I know that's kind of, they are ready to hit the ground running on this project for development.
So I would ask that you get an answer and provide it to the planning director so she can let the planning board members know.
Absolutely. I can work on that this evening.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chair, there's somebody raising their hand.
Okay. So,
There's somebody raising their hand in the attendance. I'm not sure if.
can you bring that individual into the meeting? So we have someone identified as RLA.
Hi there, guys. Mr. Chairman, this is Rob Levesque. Can you hear me okay?
Hi, Rob. How are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. I did hear the question about the kind of what the status of the project was. Working directly with Charlie Richards and Frank Fitzgerald related to someone that has a pending purchase of the property that will be developing it. So I believe Mr. Richards and Mr. Fitzgerald will be building the property for them. And then I don't know if it's like a real estate investment trust or something like that will essentially take over the ownership and the management of the property. But I believe that this last item of changing the office space will resolve all the questions and all of the details on the P&S. And I believe they'll be moving forward with that in short order. I would expect at this point, it might not happen this fall, but at the very latest, I would expect it to happen in the spring. And I can certainly update you with more information from Mr. Fitzgerald.
Great. So Rob, before you go, I'd love an update on them, not during this meeting, but I'd love an update on the medical complex landscaping project.
I would be happy to do that. Absolutely.
Maybe a call tomorrow or the day after would be great. So
yes, I did, not to piggyback on the meeting, but I did have a conversation regarding that with the ownership. So I have details and there's some positive information that I have for you.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
So if there are no other questions, no other speakers, so do I hear a motion to approve the waiver, site plan waiver?
So moved, George.
Do I have a second?
I'll second, Jonathan.
So a motion made and seconded by roll call. Mr. Punderson?
Aye.
Mr. Kingston?
Aye.
Mr. Richards?
Yes.
Mr. Torsia?
Aye.
And I'm a yes as well. Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Take care.
You.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Mr. Clerk, next item, please.
SPRW 2020-36, home office, request for site plan review waiver for home office for Platinum Graphics, an online graphic design business at 7 Auburn Street, assessors parcel ID 12B-51-9 in residential C zoning district. The applicant is Corey Wannett, 7 Auburn Street, East Long Meadow, Mass.
Is the petitioner available? So Corey, we can't see you and we can't hear you.
All right, can you hear me now?
I can hear you, we can't see you.
All right, turning it all on. It's giving me the option to now that I'm joined.
Okay, great.
All right. That should bring me in. Can you still hear me?
We can hear you.
Well, you just can't see me. All right. I'll work on that, but I am here. I can see you guys.
So tell us, you know, a little something about your business.
So I've worked in this industry for a long time, graphic design and doing graphics for businesses essentially is what I do. So I'll do a focus on graphic design, logo creation, things of that nature, other things that are like marketing related. But I do focus more on the actual fabrication of it as well. So if somebody has a logo and they need a sign, I'll make it. A lot of the stuff that I do is vehicle graphics. So, you know, a lot of landscapers, things of that nature, they have like the graphics on their vehicles themselves. I focus on that because, especially with what I'm doing right now, being all on my own, I am able to do the exact same thing. I can myself on my business only focus on the design of it. And then I have so many people that are, you know, in the industry, and there's this thing in my industry called being 3M certified, which certifies people to actually install these graphics. So I'm able to do my entire business that I'm doing right now essentially completely virtual, because all the physical labor that I do myself is the design. Then I'm able to tap into this 3M network of companies that are certified to do the actual labor of installing everything themselves.
So there was a pause there, so I think it missed something important.
Okay.
So all of the installation of the signage on the vehicles will not be at your location. Is that correct?
Correct. So I won't be doing the installation myself. In this industry, especially with what I'm talking about right now, vehicle wise and the sign installation themselves, there is actually a network that is sponsored by 3M, which everybody knows 3M does a million things. They're a very well-known company, but they actually certify this industry that I do myself. So I will be doing the designing and the project management. And then anytime it comes to the physical labor, so, you know, vehicles actually touching anybody's car or signs actually being installed, I will be then taking my project and giving it to a company that is certified in that, and they will be doing any of the physical labor. So I won't myself be going anywhere and touching vehicles or putting signs up myself. I'll be doing the virtual work, the design, the project management side of it, and then handing it off to people who are certified to do the actual installation.
Okay, any questions from the board? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the site plan waiver for the home office for Platinum Graphics?
So moved, George.
Do I have a second?
Second, Pete.
So a motion made and seconded to approve the site plan waiver by roll call. Oh, there you are, Corey.
There I am, right at the end.
Mr. Punderson?
Aye.
Mr. Kingston?
Aye.
Mr. Richards?
Yes.
Mr. Torsia?
Aye.
And I am a yes as well. Congratulations and best of luck to you.
Thank you.
Take care. Next item, Mr. Clerk.
Okay, SPRW 2020-37, home office. Request for site plan waiver for a home office for Spartan Sharpshooter, an online coaching business at 175 Tanglewood Drive, assessors parcel ID 74-21-51 on .7 plus or minus acres in residential A zoning district. The applicant is Gary Gray, 175 Tanglewood Drive, East Long Meadow.
Is the petitioner available? Hello.
Good evening, everyone.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
So I think you've been on listening to the other items. So tell us a little something about your business, so we can just get started on questions.
Absolutely. So it's basketball coaching for players at all levels. It was born of, it started as a shooting clinic that I did in town, and we had to go virtual due to the pandemic. And so I started creating some videos for people to look at on YouTube to refine their game and practice on their own. It's being made official in order to open a bank account so that I can sell merchandise and so on and so forth. There are other things that we're doing. I'm creating an app so that it's called Shot Log, so that players can download the app to their phone or even use it on a PC, record how many shots they take and how many they make so they can track their progress as they improve. There'll be social media interaction where we talk about game commentary of basketball, and there'll be some clinics, some live clinics, as well as some different events that'll be put on in town, but at different locations, not on this location.
Questions from the board? So I just have a fun question. I don't know if you would work with a 60-year-old 5'9" man to improve his shot, but
I can make you an 80% free throw shooter, I promise.
Yeah. So hearing no further questions from the board, do we have a motion to approve the site plan waiver for Spartan sharpshooter?
So moved, George.
So motion made. Do we have a second?
Second.
So motion made and seconded by roll call. Mr. Punderson.
Aye.
Mr. Kingston.
Aye.
Mr. Torsha.
Aye.
Mr. Richards.
Yes.
And I am a yes as well. Good luck and best of luck. Best of luck to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next item, Mr. Clerk.
Case site 2020-5 State Line Firearms, request by applicant for site plan review for a retail sales business for the sale and repair of firearms and sale of ammunition at 225 Shaker Road, Assessors Parcel ID 18-5-0 on .3 plus or minus acre site located in Industrial Zoning District. The applicant is Jonathan Guinapiro, 14 LaSalle, East Long Meadow.
So is the petitioner available? And as they are signing in, Bethany, we've received some correspondence from town departments on this. Do you wish to recap?
Sure, we had comments from the health department. They had no comment for this case. And the police department said that they do not have any issues with the above proposal and security plan.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So there's someone named Jonathan, but there's no last name. Should I just send him in?
Please do.
Hello?
Hello, I can hear you.
Can you see me as well?
Not yet.
Okay.
So you just muted yourself. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I can't get the video to work.
So at the bottom of the screen to what would be your left, there's a video camera. Is there a slash across that?
No, sir.
Okay. So let's just start through audio. So tell us about your business and what your plans are, please.
Oh, there we go. Start my video. Sorry about this. There we go. So my business is going to be located at 225 Shaker Road. We are going to be selling firearms, fixing firearms, and selling ammunition as well.
So can you, just for us, can you specifically tell us which building that is?
It's the one, if you are standing in the parking lot of La Florentina looking at the Shell gas station to the right. What is now JMG Salon.
Okay. And they are vacating that premises?
No, there's 2 apartments to this, so they're renting the upstairs and I will be renting the downstairs.
Okay. So tell us what your anticipated hours of operation, number of employees, that type of thing.
Our hours of operation will be Monday 9 to 5, Tuesday through Sunday will be by appointment only, and I will be the only employee to start off.
Okay. Questions from the board before I open it up for the public hearing? So do I have a motion to open the hearing?
Motion made.
So a second?
Second, George.
So a motion made and seconded to open the public hearing. So by roll call, Mr. Punderson,
Aye.
Mr. Kingston,
Aye.
Mr. Richards,
Aye.
Mr. Torsia,
Aye.
and I am a yes. So is there anyone in the audience who wishes to be heard on this issue? Please raise your hand so you can be brought into the meeting. Is there anyone, Jamie?
No, I don't see any hands up.
Okay. So hearing none, do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved, George.
Do I have a second?
Second.
So a motion been made and second to close the public hearing. Those, so by roll call, Mr. Punderson,
Aye.
Mr. Kingston,
Aye.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Mr. Torsia,
Aye.
and I am a yes as well. So back to the board. Questions of the petitioner?
The only question I have, I know the police department has signed off on the security plan. My only concern is that property, again, backs up to the rail trail. And
Okay.
I was wondering if there were any plans to secure the rear parking lot from the rail trail by a fence or some other means.
At the moment, no, there's nothing to secure it from the rail trail. There is an extreme drop over there, so if they dare hike up that, I think they would have trouble to begin with. Also, too, all our contents will be under video surveillance. We have a monitored security system at all doors and window points, motion sensors. We're also going to have security glass on the windows, so it should be next to impossible to break in by the time the police would show up.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve this item?
You need to close the public hearing first.
We did.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, we did.
Yeah, we did. Okay, fine. Make a motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
So motion made and second to approve this item by roll call. Mr. Punderson,
Aye.
Mr. Kingston,
Aye.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Mr. Torsia,
Aye.
and I am a yes as well. Best of luck to you.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you. So I would ask the board for their consideration that we take an item out of order, that we just move, we bypass item 7 for the moment, and we move to the irrevocable letter of credit for the bond reduction for case SDD 2019-04 regarding Bella Vista Estates. So do I have a motion to do that?
So moved, George.
Do I have a second?
Second.
So a motion made and seconded to take that item out of order by roll call. Mr. Punderson,
Aye.
Mr. Kingston,
Aye.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Mr. Torsia, and I am a yes as well. So
Aye.
would you call the item, Mr. Clerk?
What I have here is irrevocable letter of credit for bond reduction case SD-D 2019-04, modification of definitive subdivision plans for Bella Vista Estates Phase 2. The applicant is Bella Vista Holdings Realty Trust, Brian S. Fitzgerald, trustee, 46 Center Square, East Long Meadow, Mass.
So I know that Mr. Fitzgerald is in the audience, so as he tries to get in to our meeting, Bethany, are there any issues or concerns that this board should have on this item?
No, the only thing that our attorney did mention when he reviewed the letter was to note that it will no longer be in effect April 16th, 2021, and the project should be closely monitored as that date approaches, so the letter can be drawn upon if needed prior to April 16, 2021.
I don't know if Mr. Fitzgerald heard that, but do you want to address that concern, Mr. Fitzgerald?
That is the date, the maturity date on the irrevocable letter of credit. So we would prior to that time, we would request of Months and Savings to extend it out for a period, for at least another year. But at this point in time, we're seeking the reduction at this time. So.
Okay. And Bethany, DPW has approved all the numbers?
Yes.
Any members of the board have a question for Mr. Fitzgerald?
Nope.
Hearing none. So do I have a motion to approve the bond reduction for this project?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay.
So motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none by roll call. Mr. Punderson?
Aye.
Mr. Kingston?
Aye.
Mr. Torsia?
Aye.
Mr. Richards?
Yes.
And I am a yes as well. Thank you, Mr. Fitzgerald.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So, Mr. Clerk, would you please read item 7?
Remand case site 2019-11 ground-mounted solar facility. Request by applicant for the installation of a 4-megawatt ground-mounted solar facility at the rear of Pease Road, assessor's parcel ID 33-1-0, located on 21.26 plus or minus acre site in a residential AA zoning district. The applicant is Steve Breuer, PLH LLC, 222 South 9th Street, Suite 1600, Minneapolis, Minnesota.
So it says the applicant is Steve Breuer. So if he wishes to come into the meeting, would you please raise your hand so he can be brought into the meeting? I would also like Michael Pill brought into the meeting, please. So before we start a public hearing on this item, I would request that Attorney Michael Pill, who represents the town, please give us a kind of a recap of how this issue is now back in front of the planning board for the town of East Long Meadow.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The 2-2 vote, the last time this was before the board, resulted in an appeal to the land court by PLH LLC. The land court has now remanded that to the planning board. What prompted the remand was that the court wanted a statement of reasons for the 2 members who voted no. After hearing from PLH and from myself, the court opened it up somewhat more broadly, and in I think less than a minute, I can read the essence of, okay.
Please do.
This is from the court, and this is basically the court's direction to us. Having taken under consideration the parties' divergent viewpoints on these questions, the court concludes that justice and equity require that the board not only have the opportunity on remand to provide an explanation of its prior negative vote, but also the ability to revisit and, if necessary, to alter the decision previously reached on plaintiff's application for site plan review. This includes the prospect of reaching a different result, such as an approval of the application with or without conditions, if the members of the board so vote and decide. It is therefore necessary for the board to conduct a fully noticed public hearing at which the board may hear new information about the project and act on the application in any lawful way it sees fit, including to deny, approve, or approve with conditions, and issue a new written decision explaining and memorializing their action. And I have submitted, and I think it has been distributed by Bethany, my suggestions for an amendment to the board's decision and a supporting legal memorandum.
Well, thank you. We'll get to that in due time. Thank you. So before I accept a motion to open the public hearing, are there any questions from the board for Attorney Pill? So hearing none. So do I have a motion to open the public hearing on this matter?
So moved, George.
Do I have a second?
Second.
So a motion made and second to open the public hearing on this issue. So by roll call, Mr. Punderson,
Aye.
Mr. Kingston,
Aye.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
and Mr. Torsia.
Aye.
And I am a yes as well. So the public hearing is open, and I believe Mr. Breuer, as the applicant, do you wish to start off?
I can. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you. Yeah.
Wonderful. Technology is working. I know that Jim Martin is also to be joining us. Ultimately, Mr. Pill, explained why the court remand has us all sitting here again. And I'm like to just ultimately hand it off to Jim Martin. Do you see him in the attendance?
I see him in the attendance. Yep.
Okay.
And yep.
How's that working here?
Well, we can hear you. We can't see you.
Let's see. That's it. Okay, I think I started my video. There we go. All right.
I bet Jeff Roberts is helping you.
Without a doubt. He would help me with how to turn the machine on and off.
Yeah. All right, Mr. Martin, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening. As Steve said, Tom Malone is also attending this meeting tonight virtually. He is the principal of the applicant. Matter has a long and, from our perspective, sordid history of going through the approval process of site design review. As most of the members know, and perhaps good to remind the public, this started out as a request for a zone change for the property in an effort to build the solar array that did not receive a favorable recommendation from the board or the committee of the city council. My client then pursued a challenge to the East Long Meadow zoning bylaws and the restrictive nature of it. The land court granted Judge Piper a summary judgment in favor of our client and gave the town a couple of choices. And this was before Mr. Pill's involvement. One was to undertake a revamp of the solar zoning bylaw, or to send it back to the planning board to revisit it in light of the motion for summary judgment. We then spent many, many months before you on multiple occasions addressing all of the concerns that were raised by the plans for the solar array. Each time we did our best to address them, revise plans, and present them to you. We went to the Conservation Commission and received their blessing on this matter. And each time we would ask the board, was there any other concern? Keeping in mind that despite Mr. Pill's most recent memorandum, that the law is pretty well settled that the planning board and site design review, this is not a job that the planning board has any authority other than to be discretionary with any restrictions, but it is not necessary, it is very unusual or rare for a planning board to turn down a site design review. And Judge Piper noted that recently in its court. So in good faith, my client spends lots of time and money presenting this project to you over multiple months, resulting in the penultimate meeting in which Mr. Pill showed up, made a pitch about that you did not have the authority to proceed with the project because of a zoning issue on frontage. We reminded you that in an open and public hearing, your prior counsel had said that the issue of frontage had been satisfied, and we relied on that, and that is in the public record. But nonetheless, we scrambled and got before the zoning board and got a waiver and a variance from the town on that, and returned in time to make the last meeting. At that meeting, there were only 4 members. All of the conditions had been satisfied that had been raised by the board, and the board acknowledged that. Some waivers had been granted, some had not. And then a motion was made to approve the site design review with the contingency that the requirements of the Zoning Board of Appeals be satisfied. After Mr. Torsia asked what would happen if it was a 2-2 vote, since there are only 2 members, and was informed that it would fail, the parties then voted. And it ended up in a 2-2 tie. And that's all the planning board did that night. I think it's a very strong argument can be made, and ultimately will be made, that the time has lapsed for the board to approve this project because they did not turn it down. They did not vote whether or not to approve it. They voted on a motion with some requirements that compliance with the Zoning Board of Appeals be met. Had they then taken a second vote to whether or not to approve it as is and turned it down, it would have been right perhaps to say that they had properly and timely ruled on. But the first argument we make is that the decision is that the site plan is approved. You did not rule in a timely fashion. The time is long since passed. Nevertheless, in order to protect our rights, we went back to the land court, and we went back to the land court after we received the decision. Now, all of you know that the decision that was issued by the town contained lots of findings and lots of conclusions. Not one word of those were spoken or stated on the record at the hearing. So the planning board, with all due respect, did not apparently appreciate or understand what the significance of the review was by the planning board on a site design review. And secondly, did not appreciate the timelines within which they had to make that decision. And thirdly, they did not make any findings to support their reason for turning this down. The land court completely got it. Judge Piper, made his ruling. And once again, he's given the town another bite at the apple to do the proper legal thing. Now, Mr. Pill's got a short hand here, and he scrambles and now tries to persuade you with a memo that Mr. Malone has addressed, saying, well, you really can get into zoning on a site design review, and gives you lots of information. That's just, I could spend a long time talking with you tonight. It's not necessary. The record is open. The record we have submitted to the town is complete. I want to make sure that that this record reflects the fact that everything that we submitted to this planning board, right up until their final vote, is still in the record and is before you and should be acted upon on a site design review. The board does not have the authority to sort of contort the law to say that we, as a planning board, can take into consideration whether or not this is properly zoned. The planning board was aware of the court's ruling that the current ruling is that the restrictions of zoning in the East Long Meadow Planning bylaw are illegal. The planning board was aware of the fact that just 2 nights before, or 1 night before, this matter had been before the town's zoning board of appeals, and that zoning board of appeals granted a variance on the issue, the only issue that the board had raised or had raised at the court with regard to zoning. The plan is full and complete. Instead, this town, it's a public record, it's been published, has spent over $150,000 of the taxpayer money at a time when every municipality in town, city has challenged to deny or delay or obstruct this project in a location that even with GPS would be hard for any citizen in East Long Meadow to find. We are asking this board to comply with the court's order that to state their reasons on the record for the two individuals who voted against the motion with conditions. We're asking the board to address the fact that they've taken no further vote on this matter since that 2-2 tie. And number three, we're asking the board to acknowledge that no reasons were given at the hearing for that vote, and that the record that has been submitted by Mr. Pill is Mr. Pill's legal theories and not any findings or facts or conclusions of the board. So that's my opening statement, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to address this board? Please raise your hand so you can be called into the meeting.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, we do have some questions after we hear from the members pursuant to the court order as to the reasons why the members who voted negatively voted the way they did. And frankly, we'd like to hear from the members who voted in favor of the motion as well.
Mr. Martin, we will do what the court has asked us to do.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for all of your assertions. I see a Tom Malone. Would you like to address this board?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
I just want to add one thing to Attorney Martin's presentation, and that is we also request that the board reconsider its determination, like the court has implied it should do, and take a revote and then give its reasons for whatever the vote is.
And as I just indicated to Mr. Martin, we know what our obligations are by the court, and we will fulfill those obligations.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Malone, you sent an email to the members of the planning board over the weekend. Do you wish to read that into the record?
I assume that it would be part of the record since I emailed it to the planning board, but I'm happy to read it if that's.
I think the residents of the town would like to hear it.
Okay. Hold on a second.
Just to be clear, Mr. Chairman, are we talking about the August 21st memo or the one?
No, this is September 26th.
Okay.
September 26, 2020 at 5:01 p.m.
Thank you.
That's right. Okay, I'll be happy to read the email. Good afternoon, ELM Planning Board members. I look forward to joining you for Tuesday's remand hearing on site plan review for the 4-megawatt solar project that no one in East Long Meadow will ever be able to see. I request that this email be added to the public record as a public comment from a landowner in ELM and as a taxpayer in ELM, i.e. PLH LLC. As I am sure Attorney Pill advised you, site plan approval is non-discretionary, which means a denial is not permitted under Massachusetts law except in the rarest of circumstances which are not applicable here. In the attached memorandum sent yesterday to the Massachusetts Department of Energy Resources, DEWR, Attorney Pill states on page 2, Michael Pill Esquire believes and has acknowledged to the land court that the East Long Meadow site plan review process set forth in East Long Meadow zoning bylaw section 7.40 site plan review is non-discretionary. That should be the guiding principle for Tuesday. Then Attorney Pill goes on to describe what may be a new legal strategy. A planning board, or quote, a planning board can also make a threshold determination concerning whether or not a particular use is or is not allowed by right. If the planning board determines the use is not allowed by right, then the board can deny site plan approval on that ground, close quote. The land court already made the determination that the solar use on PLH's property is permitted as of right and struck down the bylaw's prohibition. The quote determination, close quote, that Attorney Pill describes cannot be made by the planning board at Tuesday's hearing because the question has been determined by a valid and in effect order of the land court. The legal strategy Attorney Pill has described to doer would be a direct assault on the land court and its ruling. Of course, the town is free to exercise its rights to appeal the land court's decision, but the new strategy described in the doer memo would simply be an outright refusal to obey a valid order of the land court. Attorney Pill, town council, or council of your choosing could advise you on the possibility, if any, of a contempt citation and or the possible consequences of such an action. The town has already spent $127,648 in legal fees to Bulky Richardson fighting a solar project that no one in the town can see. By now, I assume that the total legal fees paid by the town have exceeded $150,000. And now it appears that you may be advised to place yourselves in the position of being subject to personal consequences for refusing to obey a court order. These are developments that should be of interest to all residents and landowners in ELM. You may also wish to take note of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 258, Section 9, which says, quote, "No such employee or official other than a person holding office under the Constitution, acting within the scope of his official duties or employment, shall be indemnified under this section for violation of any such civil rights if he acted in a grossly negligent, willful, or malicious manner." As a landowner and taxpayer in East Long Meadow, PLH hopes that the town will reconsider what seems like maybe a plan to refuse to adhere to a valid, unstayed order of the land court while embarking on a new legal fee spending spree that may be hundreds of thousands of more dollars fighting a solar project that no one in the town will ever see. Sincerely, Tom Malone.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to be heard on this matter? It can be brought into the Zoom meeting. I guess we don't hear any. So for the petitioners, I'm asking you at this time if there is any other issues you would like to raise on this, because once the hearing is closed, there will not be an opportunity for you to address this board further unless there is a question submitted to the chairman or through the chairman, and I deem it necessary to call you back in to answer the question. So I give you another opportunity to express your opinions, so forth and so on this matter before I take a motion to close the public hearing.
How do I, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Can we have confirmation that the entire record from the first session that was presented to the board is now made part of this record tonight?
It's public record.
Well, this is a hearing. We are asking that all the information that was submitted at the first matter be put into the record in this hearing.
I don't see any reason why not. I might ask Attorney Pill if there might be a reason to not allow this.
No reason.
Okay. There you go, Mr. Martin. There's the town's answer.
Thank you.
So Mr. Breuer, Mr. Martin, Mr. Malone, final say?
I just want to clarify that the record will include the recorded decision of the zoning board that issued the variance. The written decision was actually issued after the first vote.
Mr. Pill?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear what Mr. Malone said. If you could repeat it. You're asking me to respond to what he just said?
I am. Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Malone, could you restate that, please?
I just want to make sure that what gets into the record also includes the actual written decision, which includes the variance. Since that was not written or in written form at the time of the last vote.
So you mean the decision of the zoning board?
Correct.
Yeah, it's a public record. You can certainly admit it. That's fine.
I agree. We could, you know, we can certainly consider, as Mr. Malone has requested, that the decision of the zoning board to grant a variance filed with the town clerk is considered part of the record of this proceeding.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So hearing no other people willing to address the planning board on this issue, do I have a motion to close the public hearing on this matter?
So moved. George.
We have a motion made. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
So a motion made and seconded to close the public hearing on this item. So by roll call, Mr. Punderson,
Aye.
Mr. Kingston,
Aye.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Mr. Torsia,
Aye.
and I am a yes. So before, well, it's back to the board. I will ask Attorney Hill to speak on some of what he has just heard from the petitioners, but there are a couple of things that I think need to be said. So in the initial complaints filed by PLH, there were assertions that the town of East Long Meadow, town council, planning board, etc., essentially were turning their head to things like solar power, climate change, and the sort. I want to assure the residents of the town of East Long Meadow that no such thing has ever occurred in front of the town council, the meetings that I've viewed, or the planning board. On the contrary, a previous planning board went to great length and developed a solar bylaw that was presented to town meeting and was approved at town meeting a number of years ago. Since that time, we have permitted 2 solar array / farms, one which is already in operation over by the Long Meadow Athletic Fields across from Twin Hills Country Club. And during one of the initial hearings with PLH at the same meeting, we approved a solar array at Cardamundi. So to make the assertion that the town has turned its head about solar power and the impacts of climate change is totally, totally false. And I just felt that it was necessary for the residents to be heard. The second thing I wish to address is the assertion from Mr. Malone in the memo that he sent the planning board over the weekend. He's indicated that the town, I'm going to quote, the town has already spent $127,648 in legal fees to Buckley Richardson fighting a solar project that no one in town can see. So I went a step further. I got a hold of the town manager, Mary McNally, and I asked whether that was true. Mary McNally informed me that there was a Freedom of Information Act request forwarded to the town and information sent back to Mr. Malone. It included legal fees to Buckley Richardson from 2017, 2018, 2019, prior to the petitioner coming to the planning board. It is the estimate of the town manager that the total dollars afforded Buckley Richardson for their legal services related to the solar is $19,454. I felt that was important that the residents of town know that as well. In Mr. Malone's statement, he alludes to, and I want to make sure I read this. It now appears you may be advised to place yourselves in the position of being subject to personal consequences for refusing to obey a court order. To me, that sounds like a threat. It sounds like he is trying to intimidate members of this board to vote in his favor. And I want to go back to the money one more time. I am thrilled, as in quote, Mr. Malone, as a landowner and a taxpayer in East Long Meadow, you're somewhat concerned about the spending associated with this project. There is something you can do, Mr. Malone, to end the legal fee spending on this project. You can discontinue your lawsuit. Very simple, very easy. You can put an end to the legal spending just like that. I would now like to ask Mr. Pill to please step in and inform the planning board of, I guess, your thoughts on what you just heard during the public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As a result of Mr. Malone's email that he read into the record, as of the receipt of that email, I am working pro bono, meaning unpaid, on behalf of the town and the planning board. I will complete defending the town in Mr. Malone's Superior Court lawsuit against the Department of Energy Resources, where he also named the town as a defendant. If necessary, I will pursue all meritorious appeals on that case. I will continue to defend the town and will take all meritorious appeals in his first lawsuit against the town of East Long Meadow. If he chooses to, depending on how the board votes tonight, if he pursues further litigation against the planning board, I will continue to defend that both at the trial court level and through all meritorious appeals, and I will do that on a pro bono basis. So that is my initial response to Mr. Malone's email. My second response is, and I have to take a deep breath here because an attorney has an ethical obligation, but I'm not going to get into that, okay? Let me simply state that the decision of the land court to which Mr. Malone is referring is what's called an interlocutory decision, meaning it is a provisional decision during the course of a lawsuit. I have filed on behalf of the town a motion asking the court to reconsider that, on which the court has not yet ruled. Mr. Malone, on behalf of PLH, has filed an opposition to that motion, okay? If the town does not obtain reconsideration, I would recommend to the town that that decision go up on appeal. If the land court rules against the town, and not only on the reconsideration, but eventually enters a final judgment against the town, and if the town authorizes me, again, pro bono, unpaid, volunteer, to take that up on appeal, and if all meritorious appeals are exhausted, at that point, and only at that point, does what Mr. Malone wrote about contempt come into play. Under no circumstances whatsoever can somebody seek to hold anyone in contempt because of the land court decision referred to in Mr. Malone's email. And I think that in a nutshell should address it. If there's other questions or concerns by the board, I'm happy to address them. Thank you.
So Mr. Pill, so the land court has instructed the planning board to hold another public hearing, and we have done so. We have taken testimony from the petitioners. There was no one else available who wished to speak on this topic. It is my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but the judge has asked us to revote this issue, and I believe for each member to state the reason why they would vote one way or the other. So at our last meeting, there were two members who voted in the affirmative, Mr. Kingston and Mr. Torsha. There were two members who voted to oppose the site plan approval, Mr. Richards and myself. So you have also stated another legal alternative that the board can consider, which I believe references that this matter is, that a site plan is just not permitted, or the solar farm is just not permitted as a matter of right in a residential zone. Is that correct?
That is correct. And in the proposed revision to the planning board decision, I cite 2 land court cases, one of which was affirmed on appeal by the Massachusetts Appeals Court in an unpublished decision, but it was affirmed. And in both of those land court cases, which I quote at some length, the land court made it very clear that certainly if a use is allowed by right, then at that point, the site plan review becomes non-discretionary. But the court also made it clear that the planning board can make a threshold determination as to whether or not a use is allowed by right. That was in the proposed revisions to a suggested decision. Then in a 30-plus page memorandum that I also provided, and my understanding is that was passed out to everyone, including the opponents, I set forth the legal arguments why I believe it is not allowed as a matter of right. And I can go into detail if not, but I hope that addresses your question.
Thank you. So I take it to the board. Does the board have any questions of anyone regarding this matter?
At this time, I would like to talk to Attorney Pill. How are you? Pete Punderson here. I haven't been a part of this. I wasn't here at the beginning of this matter, and I'm going to consider myself not part of the proceedings. And also, I would seek relief from any court case that may come against me for whatever reason. I haven't been able to vote on this matter. I'm not going to vote on this matter. I don't have enough knowledge of the previous meetings. I'd like to make that, put that in the public record, and just let you know that's how I stand.
Thank you. Mr. Kingston, Mr. Richards, Mr. Torsha, any questions, any concerns? So hearing none. So I'll start with Mr. Kingston. So we'll do a roll call. And I
don't have a motion yet, do we?
Thank you very much. So do I have a motion to one way or the other? So,
approve.
To approve. Do I have a motion to approve the site plan?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I will second that.
So motion made and seconded. Any discussion?
Yes, I have a discussion. You asked earlier for the reasoning why we voted the way we did back in March. And I believe it was the night before that the applicant met with the Zoning Board of Appeals and received the variance with contingencies. I don't believe I really wanted to vote that night because of the contingencies, but I believe the vote that was before the board was to approve the site plan contingent upon the 2 contingencies being met. My concern with the contingencies is that I'm looking at the minutes here from the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting that night, which I believe was March 9th. And it says in here several times that there's to be a written intermunicipal agreement that's going to be made between the municipalities and put into the planning board file. I didn't want to vote because I didn't know what was going to be in that municipal agreement, and was there anything in that agreement that may have an effect on the site plan. And in not knowing, how that letter was going to come about and what was going to be in that letter and how that was going to affect the site plan, I really did not feel comfortable approving it with those contingencies because I didn't know what the outcome of those contingencies were going to be. So that was my vote. Now, has there been a intermunicipal agreement made since then? And if so, does it have any effect on the site plan that's before us?
Mr. Pill, to the best of your knowledge, has there been an intermunicipal agreement signed?
Not that I know of, no.
And I'm not aware of any that has been signed as well.
And is it true then that the variance is not in effect and will not be in effect until there is a municipal agreement that has been signed between the 2 municipalities?
Attorney Pill?
I think it's fair to say that when a board decision is made conditional, that the board, yes, it cannot go into effect until the condition is satisfied.
So once we can see what the municipal agreement says, and that's a requirement of the applicant, because no matter what the planning board does, the applicant can't go forward until that agreement's been signed anyways. I'm still of the mind of, I'd like to see that agreement, make sure there's nothing in it that has any effect on the site plan whatsoever. And if that's the case, then that contingency has been resolved, and it makes it a cleaner vote, I think, for the planning board.
Mr. Kingston, would you want to express your reason one way or the other on how you would vote?
Well, first of all, I'd like to comment on the comment that was made several times in the email that was sent to us, that no one will ever see this solar farm. The applicant does not control the land around the solar farm. And as we have seen in numerous cases in this town, developers have a tendency to move into open land. And there's no guarantee that in the future, the land around that area will in fact not be developed. And so to assert that no one will ever see this, I think is an error. I'd also like to say that I've heard a lot about the question of whether or not the zoning bylaw is valid since the last time we addressed this. And as a member of the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission and the Executive Committee of that commission, I've had the opportunity to discuss this issue with representatives from a number of other towns who have essentially the same bylaw that we do. And none of them have been challenged about whether or not that bylaw is valid. And so we're not unique here in trying to restrict solar farms in residential zones. So relying on Attorney Pill's statements that this is an interlocutory agreement, interlocutory ruling, and that appeals are possible to reconsider a decision that was made possibly in error. My feeling is that I would go back and rely on our bylaw, because I do think that our bylaw is valid as written.
Thank you. Mr. Torsha, do you wish to express how you would be voting and the reasons why?
Yes. So, well, as for the vote back in March, I felt that it was I was comfortable with the site design. I think it's important to note, as the board probably already knows, we're not anti a certain industry or trade or whatnot. We are just looking at a site plan independent of what is actually on it and looking at whether it meets the certain standards and thresholds that the town has laid out and that the state has laid out. I'll just echo, Russ, I think, Mr. Chair, you did a good job kind of going through the points there to indicate. I mean, I'm very much aware when I heard that we were against climate change, or, you know, not aware of the problems of climate change, I was incensed by that. And to suggest that we would, you know, just willy-nilly spend the taxpayer dollars is also, I think, quite an egregious accusation to make at us. But I was, at the time in March and still now, comfortable with how the site was laid out and the design of the site. That is why I had voted in the affirmative. But there was obviously still at that time, as I noted, this question, this frontage question that was still up for debate. And obviously some of the colleagues on this board disagreed with our affirmative stance.
Thank you. So I will give my reasons. So my reasons voting negatively back in March in the initial hearing was I felt that Mr. Richards had made a very valid point that they wished to see whether the conditions could have been met before this board should have taken a position. The conditions placed on the variance were very valid and very responsible by our zoning board. They took great thought in that. The one that struck me was the same one that struck Mr. Richards, is the requirement to receive an intermunicipal agreement signed by the town. It is my understanding, and I could be wrong, but that would need to be negotiated by the town manager and approved by the town council. So they may have other things in the intermunicipal agreement that could potentially have an impact on this project and the site plan. And therefore, the variance was not in place, and therefore the conditions to vote on the site plan as presented were not appropriate. And I want to bring the board back. You recall that I believe Mr. Richards made a motion to potentially continue this until the conditions were met. Mr. Martin was emphatic, in fact, very emphatic, that a vote be taken that evening. And so we gave Mr. Martin what he requested, a vote that evening. So I believe that the conditions on there not having been met as of now are a valid reason to, I will vote no on this. I also believe that the legal argument that Attorney Pill has put forward, that if we believe that this is just not allowed as a matter of right in a residential zone, that we can vote against the site plan. Logic would hold that the planning board approved a solar bylaw. They presented it to the voters at town meeting. Town meeting voters approved the bylaw. The Attorney General approved the bylaw as to form. We are here fulfilling the wishes and the desires of the town of the residents of the town of East Long Meadow. They said, we're fine having solar, but we want it in specific districts. We do not want it in a residential zone. I am more than comfortable with Attorney Pill's recommendation and advice to the planning board. So before I ask for a vote, is there anyone else that wishes, any board member who wishes to add anything to this? So just before I do, so Mr. Martin, I see your hand is up. As I indicated before, no one from the planning board has asked a question through the chair to you. I had indicated that you had an opportunity to express all of your opinions during the public hearing. I have not heard a question from a member to you, so I will not be having you address the board through Zoom on this request, on this issue. So we have a motion to approve the site plan for this project. A yes vote is, no, it approves the site plan. A no vote does not approve the site plan. Mr. Pill, do you want to add anything before we vote?
Not at this time, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. Is it still possible to be able to get these two contingencies resolved and then have the site plan vote?
Well, Mr. Richards, I believe there were 4 contingencies, I believe, but Mr. Pill, your opinion on that?
After the portion in the remand order that I read, the land court said that the court's August 20th, 2020 order of remand is hereby amended to require, which that had an earlier deadline, to require that the board open, hold, and conclude a new public hearing after full and proper notice no later than October 1st, 2020, during which it shall conduct a new vote on the plaintiff's application for site plan review. that any board member voting not to approve the application state on the record their reasons for so voting, and that no later than October 15th, the board file with the East Long Meadow Town Clerk a new decision stating the reasons for any vote not to approve the application or to approve it with conditions. And then by October 22nd, the parties have to file a written status report giving the board's decision. So I would have to say, given the land court's deadlines, I think it's incumbent on the board to go ahead and vote so that a decision can be prepared and filed with the town clerk, and we can then report to the land court.
So my question is there, and I don't believe there is, but is there an intermunicipal agreement? And if so, do we know what it says regarding anything related to the site plan?
Not to my knowledge, no. But I defer to anyone else on the board who may know.
Jonathan?
I'm not sure, but from one of the previous meetings, I thought that there was mention of a intermunicipality agreement between Enfield and East Long Meadow, or Summers, I should say, excuse me, as regards when we were discussing the threat of a potential fire hazard or something, of whether we would have trucks coming down from East Long Meadow or whether they'd be coming from Summers. So I thought maybe it was just a discussion. I'm not sure if there's anything written in.
So go ahead, George.
If I might clarify, there is a mutual aid agreement, a general mutual aid agreement between the towns. So that if we have a fire and we can't handle it ourselves, Enfield can, or Summers can send trucks up and help us out. But that's not what was asked for by the Zoning Board of Appeals. That was more specific. And I would be very surprised if any such agreement was signed off on by the town council without it having been reviewed by town attorney first. And therefore, if town attorney is unaware of it, I'm fairly confident that nothing has happened.
So I would just like to be, I'd like to be very complete on this question. So I would like to request Mr. Martin to rejoin our meeting, and for the limited purpose, Mr. Martin, of answering the question whether there is an intermunicipal agreement between the town and Summers that you are aware of.
I'm back now.
Mm-hmm.
Hello?
Is that correct?
Yeah, we can hear you and see you.
The intermunicipal agreement was to be coordinated and written between the towns. The applicant was, and Mr. Torsia was at the ZBA meeting. That was not the obligation of the applicant. So if there is no agreement, it's because the town has not pursued that. To be candid, I'm unaware that the town went forward with that, but that was not an obligation or a duty or responsibility of the applicant. And in fact, if you look into the reports that are in the record now, the fire department addressed that when they went through and approved the plans, and said that they would work with Summers on a dual response or intermunicipal response to the fire. That's to the best of my knowledge.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Okay, so Mr. Martin can be, thank you. So everyone has had their say. Everyone has given reasons why they may vote one way or the other. So I will ask for a roll call vote. As I indicated before, a yes vote is you're in favor of the site plan. A no vote is you are not in favor and you're denying the site plan. So Mr. Kingston.
Okay, would you, I'm sorry to interrupt. Would you please repeat this? Is this being made once again contingent upon those not two, but those contingencies being resolved?
No, the motion did not include that.
The motion did not include that. So, Mr. Kingston.
Nay, for the reasons stated.
Mr. Richards.
No.
with the reason stated.
The reason stated.
Mr. Torsia,
Aye.
with the reason stated. Jonathan, with the reasons you stated.
Yes.
And I am a no with the reason stated. This item fails. Okay, thank you all. The next item on our agenda is the director's report. Bethany?
Sure, one moment. Let me just pull it up. We didn't have much to report today. I just wanted to update everybody on the Shared Streets and Spaces grant program that the town received. We are installing, or DPW is installing a section of sidewalk. I saw them started that earlier this week. We also have 2 artists helping us with the mural project in the parking lot at the end of Maple Court. They will start painting on Thursday morning, and Don Mackey will be helping to record that progress. Let's see. The master plan progress, we are waiting to hear about the availability of our regional MVP coordinator. He will go over the details of how the program works and let us know what the steps are, what any of the glitches we might expect could be, and just give us a heads up in general so it will go smoothly.
Bethany, do we have items for October 6th?
We do not, and that's my next item, is if the board would like to hold that meeting or if they would like to wait until the next meeting in October.
Pleasure of the board.
I will not be able to be there on October 6th because of medical reasons.
Going okay with waiting until October 20th?
I am.
I am.
I am.
As am I. Thank you, Bethany. Anything else you'd like to add?
Nope, that's it.
If I could make a comment, at the last executive committee meeting of the PVPC, we did authorize the director to negotiate a contract with the town for support on the master plan. So that did go through.
Yep.
Okay. Hearing no other business, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. Okay, by roll call, unfortunately, Mr. Punderson. Motion to adjourn, Mr. Punderson?
Aye.
Yeah. Mr. Kingston?
Aye.
Mr. Torsia?
Aye.
Mr. Richards?
Yes.
And I am a yes. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night,
Have a
folks.
good night.
Night.